On screen, we see sort of a reference slide for you. This is summarizing the verification commands that we use to glean information from our routers and to troubleshoot a variety of router network services, such as IP-SLA. Remember what that did? With IP-SLA, we could send a probe or something as simple as a ping out to a remote device and measure how the network treated that ping or how the network treated that probe. We could even use that with a policy-based routing to influence routing decisions. That was IP-SLA. We talked about a specific first-hop redundancy protocol, and that was HSRP, and we talked about enhanced object tracking and how we could track not just the status of an interface being up or down, but how we could use enhanced object tracking to, in our example, we tracked whether or not an interface was enabled for IP routing, and if it was not, we decremented the priority value. We also talked about GRE. The GRE tunnel, remember where we set up a virtual tunnel that could span multiple routers, and we could encapsulate just about any layer 3 protocol inside of that GRE tunnel. And we talked about some things that could go wrong with that. We talked about NAT, Network Address Translation, both the classic version of NAT and the newer NVI version of NAT. And we saw that their syntax differed just a bit. We've also discussed a network time protocol, how we could configure a network time protocol server, maybe on one of our routers that points out to some internet-based cesium clock that we trust, and how it could provide time to NTP clients inside of our network. We also talked about a syslog server. That might be a server sitting on your network and you've got multiple devices that send their log information to that centralized repository. And when we were setting up logging, we showed you how to specify a severity level. We would get severity levels of a warning in our example and more severity levels, but we didn't want to be too verbose. We didn't want to fill up the hard drive of this syslog server with debug level information as an example. We wanted to make sure we specified the correct IP address as well. Finally, we talked about SNMP, Simple Network Management Protocol, and we saw that we could have communication in a couple of directions with SNMP. With SNMP, the SNMP server could go out and query a managed device and say, give me the temperature of your chassis as an example, because we're querying values inside of a MIB, inside of a management information base. On the flip side, oh, by the way, we showed you how to set up an SNMP server command in the router so that it could respond to those queries. But on the flip side, we also talked about SNMP traps. An SNMP trap is a way for a managed device to proactively send notifications. If a certain event occurs or a certain threshold is exceeded, that could trigger a managed device to send information out to the SNMP server. And we talked about some troubleshooting issues surrounding SNMP.